There are three popular ways that people prep for technical interviews, and I'm going to roast all of them. Now look, if you're watching this, you're probably grinding away, spending hours on interview prep, and you're still not getting offers. You're not lazy, you're not stupid, you're just using the wrong method. Now I've seen engineers solve 500 problems and still completely fail interviews. I've seen people watch 200 hours of YouTube tutorials and freeze the second they're on a live call. And I've seen people spend months preparing with zero structure and wonder why nothing sticks. So today, I'm breaking down the three most common interview prep methods: LeetCode, free content on YouTube, and AlgoExpert. And by the end of this video, I'm also going to tell you for the first time which one I use to prepare for my technical interviews to get hired by Microsoft and offers from Shopify. All right, so let's get into it, and let's start with LeetCode. Now, if you've ever Googled how to prepare for coding interviews, LeetCode is probably the first thing that came up. It's everywhere. Every Reddit thread, every Discord server, every engineer on Twitter is always talking about interview prep, and they're mentioning LeetCode. So what is it? Well, LeetCode is basically a massive online platform with thousands of coding problems. And when I say thousands, I mean over 3,000 problems. The way that it works is simple. You pick a problem, you write your code in the built-in editor, you hit submit, and then the platform tells you if your solution passes all of the test cases or not. If it does, you move on to the next problem. If it doesn't, you debug and you try again. Now the problems range from easy to hard, and they cover everything, right? So arrays, strings, trees, graphs, dynamic programming, you name it, LeetCode probably has it. And because so many big tech companies use algorithmic interviews, LeetCode has become the default recommendation for anyone trying to break into the industry. In fact, people literally call it leet coding. The idea sounds logical. Solve enough problems, see enough patterns, and eventually you'll be ready for whatever they throw at you in the interview. But here's what actually happens when most people use LeetCode. They sign up, they see this massive library of problems, and they just start solving. No plan, no structure, no direction. They just randomly pick problems that look interesting or sort by, most popular and start grinding away. So you finish 50 problems and you feel productive. You finish 100 and you start feeling confident. You hit 200 and you basically think that you're ready to walk into Google and ace the interview. But then when you get on a call with a real interviewer, they give you a problem you've never seen before, or worse, a variation of something you have seen, and your brain just goes completely blank. Why? Because you weren't actually learning. You were just memorizing. And there's a massive difference between these. When you grind random problems without understanding the underlying patterns, you're just training yourself to recognize specific questions. The second that something changes, like a different input, different constraints, different edge cases, you're completely lost. Now, this is what I call a false sense of progress. You feel like you're moving forward because you're checking boxes and seeing green check marks, but in reality, you're not building the problem-solving skills that actually matter in a real dynamic interview. Now, speaking from personal experience here, the people who actually succeed on LeetCode, well, they usually already know the patterns. They learn these somewhere else, maybe in a computer science degree, maybe from a structured course, or maybe just from years of experience. They're just using LeetCode to practice what they already understand. And that's usually when people turn to the next option, YouTube. Okay, so now let's talk about YouTube. Now look, I get it. YouTube is free, it's accessible, and there's a ton of content out there. You've got channels dedicated entirely to coding interviews with videos breaking down specific problems, explaining data structures, and walking through algorithms step by step. Some of these creators are really smart people. Former Google engineers, ex-Meta staff, people who have actually been through the process and come out on the other side. So you start watching. You find a video on dynamic programming, right? It's 25 minutes long. The guy explains it really clearly. You follow along, and by the end, you're nodding your head going like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I understand how that works. Now, you feel good. You feel like you learned something, but here's the problem. You didn't. There is a massive difference between understanding something when someone else explains it and being able to do it yourself under pressure. And YouTube, by its very nature, is passive. You're sitting there, you're consuming, you're absorbing, but you're not actually practicing. Think about it. You watch a video on how to solve a binary tree problem. The creator walks through the logic, writes out the code, explains every line. It looks easy, it makes sense, but then 2 days later, you sit down and solve a similar problem, and you can't even remember where to start. Now, that's not a you problem. That's just simply how the brain works. Passive consumption doesn't build skill. It can build familiarity, and familiarity is not the same as competence. You can watch 100 videos on how to play piano, but you're not going to be able to sit down and play a song until you actually put your hands on the keys and practice. Now, the same thing applies here, and that's the exact situation I was in. I used both of these methods to prepare for a coding interview, but I wasn't completely sure, so I looked around for other options and I found AlgoExpert. Now, AlgoExpert is a platform built specifically for coding interview preparation. It was created by Clement Mielescu, a former software engineer at both Google and Facebook. And the reason he built it is actually pretty relatable. When he was preparing for his own interviews, he was frustrated by the lack of organized, high-quality resources. So after he got hired, he decided to create the platform that he wished he had. Now here's what makes it different from everything else. Instead of throwing thousands of random problems at you and saying figure it out, AlgoExpert takes the opposite approach. They've handpicked 200 of the most important coding interview questions. That's it. 200 questions carefully selected to cover the patterns and concepts that actually show up in real interviews at companies like Google, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, and Apple. Now, these 200 questions span the core categories, so things like arrays, strings, linked lists, binary trees, graphs, dynamic programming, recursion, sorting, searching, stacks, heaps, trees, greedy algorithms, right? There is a ton, and they're organized into 4 difficulty levels. You have easy, medium, hard, and very hard, and these, in my experience, are a lot more accurate ratings than what you would see on something like LeetCode. So you're not just randomly picking problems, you're following a structured path that builds on itself. Now, here's the part that for me really set AlgoExpert apart when I was using it, especially compared to LeetCode and YouTube. Every single one of these 200 questions comes with a 2-part video explanation. And we're not just talking about some low quality screen recording with bad audio. These are professionally produced, crystal clear 1080p videos. The first part of each video, which is usually longer, is a conceptual overview. It walks you through how to approach the problem, how to think about it, what algorithm or data structure you should use, and why. It also covers how to optimize your solution and how to analyze its space and time complexity. Now, this is the why behind the solution. This is the part that actually teaches you how to think and that you miss in almost all of the other resources. It's trying to teach you the intuition so that you understand how if you were seeing something completely new from scratch, you would be able to solve that problem. Now, the second part of the video walkthrough is a complete code walkthrough. Now, the instructor literally writes out the solution on screen, line by line, explaining exactly what each part of the code does and why it's written that way. Now, this is done in Python because Python is pretty easy to read, but the written solutions are available in 9 different programming languages, so JavaScript, Python, Java, C++, Go, Swift, Kotlin, TypeScript, and C#. And in total, there's over 100 hours of video content on the platform. But unlike YouTube, this isn't scattered across random channels with inconsistent quality and different instructors. It's all organized, all structured, and all designed to build your understanding systematically of coding interviews. Now, the other thing that makes AlgoExpert effective is that you're not just watching videos, you're actually coding. So the platform has a built-in code execution environment where you write your solution and run them against test cases right there on the site. You get immediate feedback on whether your code works, and you can compare your solution to the official one and also community solutions as well. Now, they've also created 4 curated assessments that simulate what a real day of coding interviews looks like. So it's timed, you have multiple questions, varying difficulty, and this forces you to practice under pressure, which is something you'll never get from just passively watching YouTube videos. And if you want to take it a step further, AlgoExpert even has mock interviews, so you can pair up with other users for free and practice live coding interviews with each other on a shared workspace. Now, this is the closest thing to a real interview without actually being in one that you can get, and again, it's free. Now, with that said, here's the other thing that most people don't realize. Technical interviews aren't just about algorithms. If you're applying for mid-level or senior level roles, you're also going to face system design interviews. If you're going for front-end positions, you're also going to need to know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, right? Same thing for infrastructure, same thing for backend. You get the idea. Now, AlgoExpert actually has separate products for all of this based on your specific niche. For example, they have Systems Expert, which covers system design with 25 fundamental topics and detailed video explanations for designing large-scale systems. They have Front-End Expert, which has 50 front-end coding questions which are specific for front-end development and includes comprehensive courses on HTML, CSS, React, JavaScript, etc. They have Machine Learning Expert, or ML Expert, for machine learning interviews. So instead of piecing together, 5 different resources or just getting the interview prep done here for kind of like LeetCode style DSA problems, and then going to this platform for machine learning, and then going to this platform for front end, you get it all in one place where it's consistent and it's just easier to follow along with. Now, here's the truth that most people don't want to hear. Hard work doesn't equal results, especially not in interview prep. You can grind 500 LeetCode problems and still fail because you never learned the underlying patterns. And I've seen this with hundreds of people. You can watch 100 hours of YouTube and still freeze in the interview because you never practiced under pressure or did a mock interview. Now, the engineers who pass technical interviews at top companies aren't working harder than you. They're working smarter than you. They're using systems that are designed to teach them how to think, not just how to memorize a bunch of problems. Now, that is why I recommend AlgoExpert and why I used it myself. Over 200,000 engineers have used it to land jobs at top tech companies, as well as me, right? And right now, they have a special offer where you get access to their entire AlgoExpert suite. So systems expert, front-end expert, ML expert, infra expert, blockchain expert, all of that, which normally costs nearly $700. You get it all for just $119 for a year. Now, that's everything you need for coding interviews, system design interviews, front-end interviews, you name it, and more, all in one place for less than the cost of a single coding bootcamp session. Now, if you're serious about landing a job at a top tech company, stop gambling with random problems and wasting your time. Get a real system. The link is in the description. You can check it out. Again, this is what I personally used to get offers from both Microsoft and Shopify many years ago that still works today.